First of all, let's start this webinar session. My name is Américo Mateus. I'm the coordinator of iShip. iShip is the research unit and innovation and entrepreneurship development of the ISMAT University at the Algarve. This Takeoff Algarve webinar series, it's one of the ways that we are launching our new organic unit, iShip. We made a challenge to our teachers. We made a challenge that everybody from the different courses invite the best experts they can remember to help us to debate and to think about what can we as a university that has holistic approach with all different courses and a transdisciplinary research center, how can we help on bringing the experts from the different knowledge fields of ISMAT together to discuss, to think about the times we're living, how are these times impacting our region, the Algarve, mainly on the economic sector of tourism, but also to think about outside tourism as only industry. So there are 18 webinars. We are on the 9th webinar. This webinar is specifically about the energy of imagination. How can we make contribution to rethink tourism worldwide, but also more focused in what can we adapt and do in the Algarve region to help the small and medium-sized and big businesses around tourism to become more innovative and take this crisis as an opportunity to change what is need to be changed. So in the beginning of these talks, we said everybody talks about a new normal. We would like to understand what is the new normal in the end of 18 webinars, because I think it's a nice word, but it still doesn't have content. What exactly is the new meaning? Well, in Portugal, we are already in the stage of third stage of coming outside of staying at home. And what we can look and see now when we look in our windows is the normal getting back again. And as innovators, as researchers, as academics, I would expect that this crisis we're living should make people rethink some of the not so good actions and we were doing until now. So what I mean is that let's hope there is a new normal, whatever it is, yeah, because it's an opportunity to do that. So in a very short, I want to share with you what is exactly is iShip. Is just a small number of slides so that we can look at it. So we are this innovation and entrepreneurship and research center, as I told you. iShip, it's coming from innovation and entrepreneurship, but it's also because we are in the Algarve region. Portimão is near the sea, and Portimão means something like an harbor. The name comes from harbor. And so we want to get to be perceived as this story of people connected with the sea, and that they discover the sea channels of communication for the world, so that we assume the iShip as a good identity for our research unit. And we want everybody to sail together with us for innovative proposals for the region. We created this 18 series of webinars called Takeoff Algarve. This is the first webinar series. This is something that we will do along the time, changing sometimes the focus, but we want to dialogue and we want to activate our important international network, because there is not too much knowledge to help the region. There's never too much knowledge. So we want to bring the most knowledge we can for the region. This one is in Portuguese, but it's very simple. It's we want to promote debate. We want to ignite the different economic and complementary economic sectors for the tourism, rethink the tourism sector, and think about future scenarios. That is something that is not being discussed lately in the last years in the Algarve because there was a boom of tourism. So when money is coming in, nobody thinks about the future. So we think we need to think about future scenarios, trends, what is expected to change in the behavior of consumers, and how can we help the micro and the medium-sized companies that could not cope with the crisis and need redirection, needs new routes to navigate in these turbulent times. So in the end, we also aim to bring creative economy and technology and social innovation to the discussion of the future of the region. So this is about the energy of imagination, how to restart again. As I told you, the iShip is connected to ideas, innovation, imagination, and we want to support the region stakeholders to become more innovative through creative culture, and that creative culture and innovation become part of the DNA of these regional developers and companies. We have a human-centered design thinking and design doing approach. It means we believe in creativity, we are human-centered, we are transdisciplinary, we believe in collaboration and co-creation, but the region needs that we believe on doing, on making things and creating an ecosystem and a living system to be innovative, not for now, but for the future. Our center is developed under these three main areas. We get together the area of helping our university to become an entrepreneurial university. So it's an academic focus where we want to build the entrepreneur within our students, and we want our students to become entrepreneurs and develop their own business ideas. We have an innovation startup center that is physically starting Monday, with already students starting with their business models development, a normal incubation center, but also together with these two focus, we have the focus of the community, mainly to help the community entrepreneurs and the community citizens to rethink, reposition, and redesign their businesses, especially nowadays it makes sense. We call it like a second chance. We want to open our philosophy of innovation entrepreneurship also to entrepreneurs that didn't succeed for 1, 2, 3 times, whatever. They are also our focus as entrepreneurs for developing the region. And we are acting as a research center in the transdisciplinary mode. We are developing research lines that is supporting an holistic and a meta-systemic approach to innovation for the region. So we are running research regarding what is changing in people's beliefs and values and how this change influence the future innovation for the region. Other groups are researching about creating innovative cultures in the organization. Other groups regarding the technology and the business development through technology, and also the areas connecting with the new leadership models and new business models, processes, experiences that we can develop. So it's a meta system because we have to take insights and inputs from each area, but we have to take a holistic view to have a specific, let's say, recommendation to give to the region regarding what could be developed as a sustainable future for the Algarve region. And that means we have to cross analysis, the meta-analysis through the insights of his research, and via that we will give our best to help, like we said in the beginning, the region to have future innovation scenarios to strategically to develop and to recommend to the companies and the developers in the Algarve, let's say, to follow. So this is what we are doing right now in the iShip. That is why it's so important for us to have these sessions with worldwide experience in these different areas. This is why this research, we are very focused on applied research. That means as Carlos already said, and I'm also taking advantage of Carlos' network and philosophy of action, like he said, is all of the people that we are getting in touch. We hope that in somehow we can cooperate in our research lines, in our research transdisciplinary philosophy, so that we really can give excellent and quality input for the region. So it's not only, we never do anything just for us. We have our curriculum. We are not developing our curriculum. We are very driven with the purpose of helping the region to go out of this crisis in a better way than it was previously. Not only booming the tourism, but becoming a very, very sustainable region with different economic sectors acting together to one purpose, giving more life quality for the people in the region. So that is the iShip purpose. Thank you for your presence in our webinar. I'm not only we'll give the host leading to Ricardo and to Carlos. I will participate as try to shut up most of the time and listen and learn, but I'm here for anything that I can support these webinars. So thank you very much, and thank you, Carlos and Ricardo, for your excellent work on. It's almost the fourth webinar that you guys are running together successfully, and your work has been very important for our Takeoff Algarve first webinar series. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Americ, for your words. Now we begin. Good afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to this place. It's a pleasure, your presence here to share your ideas, your worries. It is an open place. We thank the rector of ISMAT, Professor Rui Loureiro. We thank the director of Portimão Hotel and Tourism School, Dr. Pedro Moreira. We thank students from ISMAT. We thank students from Portimão Hotel and Tourism School, teachers, politics, entrepreneurs, public, and the other entities and people present from other countries around the world. Thank you all. The theme of this event is Cultura Organizacional do Futuro, Organizational Culture to the Future. The organizers are the Tourism Management Bachelors of ISMAT, a new bachelors that will take place in next September, in partnership with the Portimão Hotel and Tourism School and the Tourism of Portugal.
We have the tourist course too.
Sorry?
We have the tourist course.
Yeah. As Americo said, this event is also inserted in eShip from ISMAT. The purpose is listening experience, new ideas in the world of mental change. Today, my colleague Carlos Cano called me and said, the point is the mental change that COVID virus can help us to make this trip. At the panel will be myself, Ricardo Oliveira, Carlos Lopes Cano Vieira, our guests, Hey Howell from the United States of America, Rush Hill from the United States of America, and Young Hawkins from United Kingdom. Our guests were invited by Professor Carlos Lopes Cano Vieira. Thank you, Carlos, for your fantastic contacts. I would like to introduce Professor Rui Loureiro, but I think he's not present at the moment. So we'll go on. I'm going to introduce the curriculum from the panel and from our guests. Professor Carlos Lopes Cano Vieira is Professor and Director of Exterior Relations of ISMAT, PhD in Management, Spain, expert in global management and political communication, former professor of the International Global Village Program at Lehigh University in the United States, international lecturer in many countries, highlighting National Assembly of Peru and the wide House, Washington, D.C., United States of America. Myself, Ricardo Oliveira, I am a professor at ISMAT, director of Bachelor's of Tourism Management, a PhD at Instituto Superior Técnico, a partner of MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology at the University of Lisbon, reviewer and the former executive of Nestlé, Portugal. Let me introduce you now Hay Holwell. Is an international expert in leadership development on youth entrepreneurship in the United States of America, notably at the level of the US presidency, having played a prominent role in the commission led by Laura Bush, wife of the President Bush. Lecturer at the National Institute of Leaders of the United States, lecturer at the IACOCA Global Entrepreneurship Intensive and Global Village for Future Leaders of Business and Industry at Lehigh University, career education consultant at Harvard Business Publishing, and vice president at the Max Knowledge. Let me introduce you now from the United States.
Ruskill is not yet. No.
He's not yet. Okay, we go on. We introduce now our guest, Ian Hawkins from the United Kingdom. He's a senior consultant at Carrington Crisp. He's expert in marketing and strategic consultancy to business schools, offering imaginative approaches using data and creativity. Worked in more than 100 in more than 30 countries. He is a Master of Science in Experimental Psychology in the Central Michigan University. The structure of this talk, first round, the ideas of our guest, Hay Holwell from the United States. After we have time for questions, I invite the public to write their questions in the chat that is down the Zoom. You can write your questions and we will answer after. So, Hey Holwell, you have the words.
Ricardo, before Jay, 1 second, can I say something?
Yeah, okay.
To our speakers, of course that we have a very open way to talk about organizational and culture organization, organizational culture. One thing that could be very interesting is that we are facing two problems, really. One is the organizational structuring, and the other is the organizational culture. In other words, today is very important the organizational culture. Why? Because today we have to think that organization in competitive way have to be in the orientation of empowerment, which is a little bit different than the way that we used to think the organization as a very rigid and very few unflexible organization, means based in hierarchical mind. Today, this has been changed. We have a new way to understand because reality pushes us to move on. Our guests have a great experience to understand why they can say how they understand what is going on now. In other words, every of us has an idea of what is the problem. Perhaps we face different ways to understand the problems. That will be the main point, to say to the people what they think about the competitive organization of the 21st century, what is going on in the companies, okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Jay.
You have the word.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's first of all, a pleasure to have been asked, certainly an honor to be part of this panel. Jay Hollowell, thank you for that bio, Ricardo. Very much appreciated. Carlos and I go back a very long time, probably well over 25 years now, both working in Portugal, England, and in the United States. And I've had the honor of speaking at several of his conferences that he organized previously at the University of the Algarve. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's interesting, Americo, when I was listening to your presentation, I picked up 3 points that resonated with me in what I thought this panel might be addressing and might have a few words to say. One was human-centered approach, which I think is going to be a key ingredient to the new normal. I also saw rethink the business model. And then the third one was an emphasis on change and change management. My background, for the most part, has been in organizational performance and talent development. I deal with people, development, skills development, career development, and also a little bit about entrepreneurship as well. So those words in your presentation, America, resonated with me very much so. Very shortly, briefly, you had mentioned something about the new normal and what is it, and I think the jury is still out on that. But in some senses, I think the new normal, so to speak, is really, in some senses, an acceleration of many things that were already in place. I know that have moved more toward telework, of course, with employees having to remain at home and separated. Telework, virtual work, online work, that type of connection with the company has been around for years and has gained a great deal of momentum. And I think that the unfortunate pandemic has accelerated more than normal. And I think secondly, too, several of marketing areas with organizations, at least here in the States, when you follow their progress, has been also accentuated as well with the pandemic, particularly with the number of closings that we've had here in the United States, and I'm sure also in Portugal as well. And then COVID-19, of course, has created almost a devastating experience or blow to many businesses, of which I know tourism is a major part. I live very close here to Virginia Beach. Did all the leadership and customer service training for Bay Creek Resort, which is a big tourist area here in Virginia. And they're having a considerable amount of difficulty staying open because of the current circumstances. So I think that it's created 2 sides of the coin. One side of the coin is from the business perspective, and one from the student perspective. And I know that you have a lot of promising new leaders with your students at the Institute. From a business perspective, and we'll probably address this in some of the answers to discussion to the questions that are coming, I just want to say briefly, one, I think that it is a good time for organizations to revisit their mission statement and their core values, to determine their scope and to focus on very few specific things that they see as important in order to not only navigate this experience, but to grow from it. Organizations get so involved in day-to-day activity and operations, and you said the money comes in, no one thinks about it. It's time for a revisit to mission statement and core values, which, Carlos, to your point, is the stimulus behind organizational culture. That's one thing. Secondly, I think there must be a specific plan in place for communication to employees who are now in different circumstances, and in many cases, not at the physical location of business. And if telework is going to be now a significant part of our future, now more than ever, employees must be connected to the organization, which means we not only have to rethink our marketing strategy and rethink our mission statement and core values, we have to rethink how we facilitate our employees connecting to us under different circumstances. And that creates a whole new model of communication. Thirdly, I think in building teams, both on site, but then virtually, we have to rethink how we develop that particular process. I think we have to have a change management program in place for our businesses to really work with our employees on the new normal, so to speak. And change just doesn't happen. As you know, guys, it is a process that we take our employees through. Strategic planning, more crucial than ever. And then, last but not least, from the employee's perspective, we have a lot of employees out there and a lot of students who want to be employees. And I don't know about Portugal, but in the United States, it's become very competitive. It's very high unemployment. There are a lot of folks looking for jobs. It's going to be crucial for our students to be able to have a documented way to build, practice, prove, and showcase their skills. If not, they are not going to get employed because there are too many people looking. And there are some processes out there that I think that we can utilize in order to ensure that our students have a competitive edge and are able to stay ahead of the curve. So with that, I will stop talking, get excited or passionate about this stuff, but I know that we have some esteemed panelists. So I'll just wait for the questions. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jay. Now we are going to listen. Jan Hawkins.
Hello.
You have the words.
Welcome.
Ricardo, thanks for the intro. I won't say too much more to add to that. So Carrington Crisp is a company that I work for. We're a small consultancy, but as you said, we've worked with over 130 business schools and universities around the world in the last 15 odd years. My background, I've only Carrington Crisp for a couple of years now. I was aware of the business and worked with the business in my previous role for a while. My previous working with business schools, so that's for the previous 10 years, and I have significantly less experience than many of the other people in this conversation. But so I've been working. Everything that I'm going to say really comes through the prism of having worked with business schools predominantly for the last 10, 12 years. And I always say that it's been a privilege really to work with business schools so closely, because I've spent most of the last 10 or 12 years talking to business academics. In my previous role, it was a communications and PR position, so I worked with clients all over the world, and it was I used their expertise. I spoke to them about things like organizational culture, about the future of work, about strategy, about change, about all the things that people in business schools research. So I almost feel as though I've been paid to do an MBA rather than paying to do one, because I've just been talking to these people as part of my job for the last 10 or 12 years. So that's been great. So to get to the point, as I said, my perspective comes through the prism of business education. I really absolutely echo what Jay just said. The COVID-19 coronavirus thing, my opinion, and I think the opinion of many people, is that it's an accelerant for we're already existing, that we're already happening. I think that people are talking about, I think that was always on the way, and when change is an ongoing thing and it's happening continuously. And I think within the world that I've been observing, the world of business education, which is inextricably linked to the world of organizations and workers, has been changing, I'd say, at quite a fast pace for the last 10 or 12 years. There has been a move towards different learning models, different teaching models. The desires of students and people who pay for business education has been changing over that period quite dramatically as well. The product that business schools offer has changed quite a lot. And the way it's been moving has been away from the traditional MBA model, which was developed quite a while ago and didn't really change for a very long time, towards something that was, you know, again, those keywords that Jay's mentioned, more flexible, more, you know, kind of focused on change and on ongoing change, rather than saying, I'm going to go to business school and I'm going to get my MBA or my master's in management or whatever program it might be, and I'll spend 1 or 2 years doing that, and then that's me set for the rest of my career. People now are focusing much more on this focus of lifelong learning. That's where the change is happening within, and it's changing obviously how people go about their jobs. I mean, all of the research that we do, and that's one thing I probably should mention, is that we do our own original research and we produce reports based on things like the future of work, and we use business schools to provide the data. And the other thing that we do is consultancy work. So we do a lot of consultancy projects with business schools where they ask us, what is the future of work? What's going to happen 10 years down the line? What should we be doing to prepare people for the working world of 2020, 2030, 2040? You know, people who are entering the workforce now and are going to be considering graduate management education. What should they be learning? How should they be learning? So a lot of the projects that we've been working on recently have been very focused on the future of work. So we produced a report that was presented at a conference in Milan in February, just before all hell broke loose. I was in Milan about a day before the whole city went into lockdown to present this work. And that project was called See the Future. I've got a couple of slides here. Let me just see if I can share on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm not going to show you all of the slides because some of them are more relevant than others. But for instance, you know, we asked, this is 2,500 respondents to this survey, and they were faculty of business schools, they were students, they were potential students, people who are considering studying, and also employers as well. So that was the group that we surveyed. And, you know, we were asking what business schools should do. 69% said that you know, they should be offering a wide range of courses to enable lifelong learning. So again, that's the focus. And they should offer more flexible approaches to taking a degree. They shouldn't be looking to offer one degree for everybody, an MBA, a master's in management. That can always be part of the portfolio, but the focus should be on something much more flexible than this. The other slide, yeah, so this one, what's the most valuable content? What should people be learning about? It's not, employers are not saying they want people to understand marketing in a great depth. They don't want to understand finance. They don't want them to understand, you know, the old-fashioned, if I will, kind of things that a business or a graduate management education used to teach you. They want people to understand decision-making in complex and uncertain times. They want their employees to understand data analytics and how to interpret data to make decisions. They want people who are interested in sustainability. It's something that businesses have been talking about for a long time, but there hasn't been enough movement. And the marrying up here now is that businesses are becoming genuinely interested in sustainability after students. Students have been saying it for ages, and the business schools and businesses have been kind of slow to wake up to it, really, even though there's been a lot of talk. And innovation, which is something that's already been talked on a lot as well, and is very central to what has been discussed at iShip. This is another critical thing that's changing, is how students will learn, and something that has obviously been impacted by the current circumstances around COVID-19. And there's an increasing realization that face-to-face is still valuable. As you can see there, 36% definitely agree that face-to-face learning provides a richer and more effective experience. With business schools, if you're paying larger of money for your degree, you're not going to want to just be off campus the whole time, sat behind a computer screen. That's the reality of it. People want an experience. But there is this growing realization that a blended model of learning is the future. It's been in the pipeline, and some schools do very, very well. Some universities do very well. But it's been in development for a while, and obviously COVID has driven the online learning experience to people who perhaps wouldn't have considered it in the past. And that's perhaps more senior executives than the younger group, perhaps people who just think that going to work and doing your job in the office is the way to do things. They also think that generation tends to think, and our research backs this up, that if they're going to learn something from a business school or a university, they have to be in that location, otherwise it's not worth anything. So I think that's something that is changing about how people are perceiving education and management education too. And it's being accelerated by the COVID circumstances. There's another slide. This guy, Tom Peters, leadership guru, some of you will be very familiar with him, was at Stanford for years. You know, he says he'd rather hire a theatre major or a fine arts major for a leadership slot than an engineer or an MBA. And I think that's something that he's been saying for a while, but there's this realization that people with more diverse backgrounds can be leaders, can be managers, can be impactful in the workplace in positions that they perhaps wouldn't have otherwise considered or been considered for. Just a couple more slides here, perhaps just that are relevant about what employers are looking for and what they're telling us they're looking for. They want people to embrace, as I said earlier, digital transformation, the ability to bring together technology and management skills. They want people to be able to work in an open, multinational and multicultural workforce, something that is proving difficult now with things like Brexit and the Trump administration in the US, which is not leading to that. But employers around the world are still very keen on it. They want people to have a strong entrepreneurial outlook. So even if you're working in an organizational context where you're in a company, they want people to think entrepreneurially or intrapreneurially, as people say. And they want people to have a focus on social responsibility. And again, this is something that students have been telling us in our surveys for years now, is that they're anxious. And I know from my last job where I had a team of 10, 12 millennials, people in their very early 20s really, graduated and came to work in my team. They're far more socially conscious. It's not just something that you hear, it's something that I've really experienced and kind of had to adapt to, even though I'm relatively young as well. I wasn't used to that kind of thing, and I had to build that into the organizational culture of the team that I led. The other thing that I really had to focus on, and this is something that Jay touched on and I absolutely agree with, is that in the future, workers are going to have to feel very closely tied to the business that they work for, whether they're in the office or now more increasingly are going to be working more remotely. I think COVID means that people will be working more remotely. Again, it's something that was already happening, something that's happened for a long time, but now more people realize that it's possible for them. That means that in order to retain your employees and keep people happy, they're going to have to feel as though they belong at the company. It means that there's going to have to be, as Jay said, a bit of a change in culture at large businesses particularly. SMEs, I think, have had to deal with this reality for a while. But large companies that are used to having thousands of people in a big building, they're going to have to come up with a model that makes people feel belonged, that isn't table tennis tables or a good canteen or things that make people want to come to the office. And I think that's been a bit of a movement in the last 10 or 12 years, has been trying to give people reasons to think that their workplace is a nice place to be. People are going to say, well, why can't I work from anywhere now? Of course you can. And I think that's another point that people are saying, that we're experiencing, is that it's not really about working from home necessarily. It's about working from wherever you want to work from. People are having to be at home at the moment and they're getting used to that. But why not work from anywhere? Employees are going to have to really feel wedded to that gives them those opportunities, and companies are going to have to come up with ways to make employees feel valued away from the office. I've probably been talking too long now. I will wrap up soon. yeah, again, this is what employers are telling us, just very briefly. They want creativity, they want leadership, communication, self-confidence, and adaptability. They want soft skills more than the hard skills. They can train people on the job. They can do the lifelong learning piece with a business school or with private organizations. They want people who are actually able to work in these ways rather than people that have deep knowledge of certain areas. I'll leave it there for now. I've got plenty more to say, but I'll leave it for the questions if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just a quick comment, if I may. You raised a very important area regarding what employees want as far as skill sets. In the United States in 1990, late 80s and 90, the Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills, SCANS, put out the SCANS report. And it said, this is what employers expect and what graduates need to know and be able to do in order to survive and be promotable in the workplace. Now, this was in like 1989, 90, 91. I spoke at a conference approximately 4 months ago in New Orleans, and I attended a panel of workplace employers, and they were asked, what is it that you're looking for in graduates? Interestingly enough, they said almost exactly the same thing that the employers said back in 1989, 1990. And the majority of it, as you mentioned, was more soft skill, performance skill areas, cultural areas, et cetera, communication areas. This is what employers were looking for. Does that mean that our schools have not done their job in training graduates to be able to work and have those skills within that big time frame? I don't. I think that there is still some confusion in the employment community as to exactly what those skills mean. You know, when an employer says, I want really good communication skills, or I want someone who's culturally sensitive, or I want someone who is creative and can think outside of the box. When you ask them to give you an example, they don't really clearly know what that example is. They know they want it, but they're not sure specifically what that activity might be in relationship to their organization. So I think another message for our business schools in preparing our graduates is to help our employment communities that are with the school or surround the school to better understand what the specifics are in this soft skills area. If we can help train our employers, then we can help bridge that gap and ensure that our students are better prepared in those areas and more competitive. So I just wanted to mention that because you had opened that up with what employers expect, and I think you're right on point.
It's interesting. It's very interesting, isn't it? How things change, but they don't change. And that was quite a while ago. So, yeah.
May I just make a point, or it's a question? Can it be that when the going gets tough, they need creatives? What I mean is, every time, this is a cycle. It looks like a cycle. It means when companies feel the pressure that they need to do something different, they come up again with the issues. We need creative people, we need communication, we need culture. When the going is okay, when money comes in, we need productive people, we need people that do exactly the best business model if they can. No, sorry. It also can be, did you listen to my question? I thought the micro was on. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I think it's also connected with the pressure from the context, the external context. When there's a special type of pressure, these issues always come. Change, creativity, innovation. When there's other type of pressures, they ask for other skills. So I think it's also, the schools need also to make employees understand the concepts, but also make understand there is a line of management for the organization, that all these skills are needed in specific terms and in holistic vision. So it's also academics' job to help understand that they cannot shift only because the context is shifting, because then you have, okay, I don't want creative anymore, just go away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think businesses can take two approaches. They can take flawed approach and saying, oh, the current circumstances are not allowing us to operate successfully the way that we always have done. And once the situation is over, we'll be able to operate successfully again because we've done it that way in the past. That's not perhaps the most creative approach. You know, the other is, well, this situation has told us that we need to go back and revisit how we operate and then focus differently. So that's a really good question that you bring up, you know, regarding when it gets tough, the tough get going. And the tough get going by thinking of new creative ways in which to manage and expand their businesses, even after this situation is over.
Okay, we have here a question from Claudia Costa. Today, with everything we can experiencing, do you think people or companies will give more value to simple things like communication, for example? Carlos?
Sí.
You want to say something about
this? Yes. First, I want to say that Jay and Ian, that you guys are in trouble. That's why I told you that you are going to work with us sooner or later.
Yes.
And another thing is that I'm going to do a double shot. First, I'm going to express in Portuguese a very, very short content, later in English. Las conferencias, la participação dos dois convidados é muito interessante, fantástica, mas nós temos todos que entender uma coisa, que há uma variável que hoje está em causa e que va a poner a repensar lo que significa la organización como estructura. O sea, un gran problema de la organización como estructura va a ser hasta cierto punto superado por esta pandemia que nos lleva a asumir el desafío de pensar, este es un desafío a la mente, y entonces las organizaciones tienen que comenzar a estructurarse ya no para controlar personas, sino para desenvolver personas. O sea, los colaboradores tienen que ser personas que se desenvolvan en la organización, que la organización les dé autonomía y que exista, más importante que la chefía, a coordinación, porque tradicionalmente las organizaciones no coordenan, tienen una frágil coordinación, lo que existe son obediencias, y entonces una organización, en esta altura, en estos momentos, todos estamos juntos. Gostemos o no, estamos juntos. Entonces, estamos en una situación, un desafío que nos pone juntos a pensar o qué tenemos que hacer. O sea, la lideranza ya no es la lideranza de un individuo sobre los otros, es la lideranza colectiva, es en equipo, un grupo. Las organizaciones tienen que ser equipas, ya no puede ser la organización baseada en una chefía y en un 90% de obediencias. Esta es época de innovación, es época de desafío, ainda acrecentada, acelerada, como dice Jay, por una situación crítica que ninguém esperaba. Mas del punto de vista organizacional, este es el momento de entender la organización como desenvolvimiento de personas y no tanto como control de personas, que es lo que siempre ha sido. Y Américo lo mencionó hace un momento, cuando la organización gana dinero, comienza a reclamar y a exigir productividad, y se esquece de que el mayor investimento, las empresas tienen que tener investimento en el capital humano, y esa noción de hablar de recurso humano es una cosa que se viene alastrando en un tiempo. Cuando se piensa en recurso, lo primero que viene a la mente son los costos, por eso que queremos siempre mano de obra barata que dé un litro. Lo importante es entender a las personas como un capital. Oye, que estamos online, internet, y tenemos que trabajar y procesar información. No hay obediencia, que hay motivación, estímulo y necesidad de dar valor a las personas para que funcionen y le den valor a la organización en los tiempos más difíciles como este, ¿no? Jan, Jay, your contribution is very important because we are now thinking that the organization today have to put the effort in reinforce people, to develop people, not to controlling people, but to develop people. And people that are in the way of developing is people that is going to give a great contribution. Luckily, even we have a pandemic, a coronavirus, but in the other way, if you see positive, pandemic put us to think together. The challenge is to change the way that we think the issues. Today, we have to rethink things, and because pandemic, we are forced to rethink. If we didn't have any pandemic, perhaps many years to move on. But today, I think that we have an accelerator. We have to take advantage of the situation. Not only to see the bad things of the situation, but the positive things. We have to face the pandemic as an opportunity to rethink and to move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Jay and Jan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, one of the things that about the pandemic has meant that in my space there's been an enormous amount of change very, very quickly. So schools have really scrambled to put everything online and to find a way to make it work. And for the most part, they've done that quite successfully because they have enormous talent and for the most part, they have good resources at their disposal to make this happen. The change doesn't stop there because I think there's a big difference between online delivery, which is what's been happening really so far, and actual genuine remote learning. You know, I think that there's so much more to be done in that space in order to make people feel as if feel value and see value. At the moment, they're accepting the situation, but plenty of people are still questioning the value of what they're going to be getting this year, next year, and maybe even the year after. So it's a whole industry that really has to think very hard about how to deliver the learning that is going to be necessary for employers, that employers are demanding, because there's one thing to say this is what the students want. They want to be flexible, they want to build resilience, they want to be adaptable to change, and the employers want that too. But as has already been alluded to by America, there's the cold hard reality of business and working life. Once this pandemic is over, things are going to change again. You'll have a bunch of employees who are now quite used to working away from, working remotely and doing things remotely, but they'll be called back to the office for the most part, unless there's rapid change in how things are done, in the interim. And I suspect that there's probably not enough time. God willing, things will get better pandemic-wise, and that will happen sooner rather than later. But I think there'll be a disconnect between the reality that employees have become used to and what companies are ready to offer them. I think that's a question mark. I certainly don't have the answer.
Yes.
But business schools and universities are going to be very central in figuring out and helping companies to come up with the answers through research and through dissemination of expertise.
And you raise a good point. I know you and all of our esteemed gentlemen here are familiar with the flipped classroom approach.
Yes.
You remember that, where you do the rudimentary things online, save the special interaction face-to-face for real student development. Well, now it's all online. And it's created a whole different ball game, so to speak, there. I think it's crucial that, as you mentioned, that our faculty are prepared not only to teach online, but they're prepared to provide a student experience online. And those are two entirely different things. So that type of training is crucial. And I'm not sure as you are, when the pandemic is over, the fallout, that's not probably the best term to use, but the results of the pandemic won't be over. It probably will never be over. Same thing in the workplace. Flip classroom, flip leadership. You know, do the rudimentary stuff, but spend valuable time face to face with your employees to do the coaching, the development, the connection to the mission, the communication, facilitation of change, the things that we've been talking about. You know, but if that employee is not face to face, then that too must be done online. So it's a whole new paradigm, as you mentioned, which is going to create very special opportunities, I think, for schools and universities in the preparation of their faculty, but and obviously in the preparation of their students for the new type of employee who can connect in that.
Yes.
It's an exciting opportunity when you think about it.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Gabriella. Are soft skills considered more important than ever in this current situation?
It's difficult to say. I mean, from my viewpoint, they've always been important, as far as I'm aware. You know, I think that there are a few soft skills that are more in demand now, or more and Jay may disagree with me on this, but I think the ability to be flexible, I think the ability and the willingness to accept change as something that isn't just happening once every 5 years or once every 10 years as part of some big change program, but as something that's continuous and ongoing, and also an inbuilt resilience, which is part of, you know, change. I think that we have to accept that change is probably what people are terming the new normal. And I think those are the soft skills that are perhaps in sharp focus at this moment, but I think have been part of the discussion around how people are trained and how people learn and how people work for quite some time now. So I don't know if they're more in demand now, but I think there are certain elements of soft skills that are perhaps more in sharp focus now than they have been previously.
I agree wholeheartedly, and the ability to think, create, to organize, to allocate resources, to communicate, to work on a team. I mean, the list goes on and on. Soft skills, performance skills, 21st century, they're called many different things, as you know, but you're right. I think the current situation in our world has created the opportunity for more of a focus on specific areas of those skills. Interestingly enough, we've done some work with faculty at business schools, as you have, and do a workshop on infusing teaching soft skills in the curriculum. And you might disagree, which would be cool, but we've kind of taken the position that soft skills really can't be taught. They can be practiced, but they can't be taught. And a lot of faculty members in business schools that we have spoken with see, you know, this is what I need to teach, and now I need to teach soft skills as a separate component. And it's not working for them until they realize that they still teach what they teach, they still lecture, they still interact, demonstrate, create opportunities, etc. But until they give their students a chance in the learning space, either on-site or virtually, an opportunity to practice communication, to practice working on a team, to practice identifying and allocating resources within the constructs of whatever that course is, that's when it really comes to measure. So we tell faculty all the time, you know, don't think of soft skills as a component of your curriculum. Think of soft skills as your curriculum, inclusive with the subject matter that you're teaching, and give some opportunities of your students to think critically. I taught balance sheets for years when I taught accounting, and it was very easy to say, here's how to do it, now do one. Well, one day I took a balance sheet in and I gave it to several teams, and I said, the balance sheet's wrong. I want you to find out where it worked backward and find out where the error is. Well, you would have thought that I was speaking Greek because it was like, what do you, but it encouraged them to critically think through a problem, looking at it from a different perspective. And then I told them on their teams that they had to, in fact, then take the corrected balance sheet and use it as a basis for making an informed business decision. And suddenly they were working in some of those critical skills without losing concept of what a balance sheet is about, but they were doing more with it than just simply creating one, if that makes sense. So you raise a really good point. I think soft skills now more than ever are crucial to employers. They're telling us that. And therefore, in us creating opportunities for our students to not only know about them, but to be able to, in the learning space, within the parameters of the subject that they're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add, I think on the soft skills thing, one thing that I think is that we hear is important, and this makes perfect sense to me, especially in the current context, is that maturity is something that employers are looking for. Now, obviously, that's always a desirable and always has been a desirable thing. But if you're asking young employees, especially people who are new to the workforce, to work remotely and to not have the rigid structures and hierarchies and processes in place that they would expect in an office environment. And it's not just young people, it's people that will have been used to that reality for years, and all of a sudden everything's changed. So I think maturity is a soft skill, and that's surely something that has to be taught through experience.
Yes,
and, it's not something you can have a module on, so I agree entirely with Jay.
Okay, thank you. We have here another question from Isabel Souza.
Angola. Bem-vinda.
Welcome. Some companies have a formal structure, culture, and practices that not support the actual situation as homework. So, how to revise the alignment before obstacles we face and how to overcome?
I would like to just a quick answer. And Isabel, welcome from Sonangol, the big company, petroleum company in Angola. It's a real pleasure to have you here. One thing about the question of Anne Isabel is that today, in a very simple way, we have the most important thing that have to be, that is evident today, is that we have to learn how to think more than learn how to do it. When we learn how to do it, sometimes we close our minds in habits or routines. If we learn how to think, we are rethinking. We have a critical thinking. That is the soft learning that today is so important, and for that reason, I think that this is a great opportunity for the world and for the human mind, because we are so close in habits and routines, and we have to overcome that. Thank you.
Jan and Jay?
In?
Yeah, your comment to Ana Isabel Souza.
I don't have the answer to that question, if I'm honest. I don't know. I think there are some industries where you need to have, very rigid structures and processes in place. They're heavily regulated, things like oil. You can't just, work from home and work an oil rig or a refinery. So I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. I think that technology has taken great strides in allowing certain aspects of some of these regulated industries to operate remotely and to change the way that their organizational culture might be, but the brass tacks of what the business does can't be done remotely, can't be changed dramatically. People have to be there. I don't know what more to say than that.
Yeah, I understand, Ian, absolutely. My best friend here in the neighborhood in Neighbor owns 2 companies that are in the terminal business. They store chemicals and they work in the maritime industry, and those people have to be on site. So the nature of the business certainly creates that situation where it can't be avoided. They're an essential business in that sense. That being said, your question, organizational structure and rigidity, etc. If I might, I would just give briefly, just maybe 2 practical examples. Just throw it out lightheartedly for fun. I mean, if I were a small to middle-sized business owner, I think 2 of the first things that I would do is, if I had employees now working more so remotely, I would provide them some very specific training on working remotely. Not, this is the technology you need and the level of the computer, and you need to be in an undistracted space, and you need to be at your computer this many hours, etc. Yes. I mean, those are basic, requirements, but real training on the culture of working, in some senses, disconnected from the company and staying in line with that. And that's a whole new experience. And I think that training is crucial for employees who will be continually working remotely beyond what we just typically tell them in remote positions. Secondly, I think you had mentioned that in some cases, employees are going to be coming back. After having worked remotely for some time, they're coming back into the fold, so to speak. What a perfect opportunity for to take their coming back employees and sit them down and just have a really good brainstorming session. Revisit the mission statement, rewrite it, update it, involve employees in not necessarily all of the major decisions, but decisions on how to move the organization forward. I mean, that might sound a little lofty, and yet in the book Asset Management, a survey and discovered essentially that productivity increased as much as 80 to 90% when employees felt like that they were part of the big picture of the organization. Sure. And it doesn't take a lot for that to, you don't, I'm not saying that employees at all levels are going to be part of your financials, so to speak, but to have them an opportunity to come back from the pandemic and to work at restructuring, rethinking, as y'all said, the organization, the mission, the core values, a little bit of the marketing plan, and get their input in such a way so that they're part of that big picture, may be a real facilitator as far as getting them reconnected to the organization. Just a couple of maybe some practical examples, if you will.
AJ, you gave a great example, because if we think the decision as a process, which is different than the decision as something that someone is under control of someone, but decision as a process means that we are value the brains of the people to participate. Perhaps they are not going to have one person a big decision, but many people participating in the decision as a process have a great impact. Just a little sample: a small decision that a person can put in action, a small decision, have a great impact in the confidence, in the self-confidence of the people. This is what many companies, many people doesn't understand, you know. People sometimes are worried to lose power because I don't want share decision with anyone. That is an old pattern. Today, understand the decision as a process is a key to develop empowerment in the organization and the full capacity of dynamics in terms of innovation, in terms of self-confidence, in terms of or dynamics, you know? Thank you.
Okay, we have Johnny Nero. I would like to get words after. You can speak, Jenny Nero.
Okay,
Hi,
Janine.
Yeah.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
I have some comments and questions along the way. I was just writing them down. I'm thinking about Portugal, and especially at Algarve. We have a reality that is computer illiteracy. And it's very hard to innovate, to engage the new employees that come to the market now with this type of problem, and especially during this pandemic, because there's nothing really to do without these sources. And most leaders here, they don't have these concepts, and it's not because their employees don't know them, because we are being preparing from school, from early age with these ones and soft skills and so on. But then we get to the organizations, they put out the ads telling us it's very important to be a decision maker, telling they want a partner, and then we come there and they just want to tell us, you do this and that's it. You're not paid to think.
Right.
And it's a problem. We are really trying to change that, and schools have a really big part in it. But I think most companies have to seek for it themselves as well. They have to get the idea, they have to evolve. And I'm not really from the management or business area. I'm doing my master's on occupational health and work psychology at ISMAT. And I know Professor Ricardo has that well aim to do with their, because I have the opportunity to listen to him sometimes, and I know he teaches those things. But when it comes to companies, there's nothing really more schools can do to get them there. I don't know if you're understanding where I'm getting.
May I just say a word? I don't want to overpower our guest.
We are trying to change that with Americo and all the team.
It's just because I want. It's very well put, Janine. I asked to speak because it's also to a point that I wanted to highlight from Jan and Jay inputs to us today and insights. And it was very important. It was Jan that brought us that this new normal, it's a challenge for businesses and for schools. And it's a challenge because everybody, as soon as possible, goes back to their safety zone. So companies will go back to the safety zone as soon as they can. They will forget everything. They will forget the change. And the reply to you, Jenny, not the reply, the dialogue with you and our guest is this: the university job does not finish with your courses. University job, a research university, is a research that also transfers knowledge and creates knowledge with the market, with the company. So in order that we have our courses running well, as Jan gave an example and Jay from their work, we need to understand and to act on the market. We need to educate companies and be educated by companies and by business people. And only on this dialogue, then we can help to have the right courses and to help to develop the skills on the leadership skills and the business culture skills that are needed for the students that are trained with a specific training soft skills, can apply them on their work positions. Okay, so I just wanted to interfere to say it's also our job. We cannot be only finished when we take your money and we put you in the market. So it's, and Jan did, and also Jay, they give us very good examples on that, is that it's our job to act on all of these of these game boards of education
Yeah,
and companies and markets.
and
And
sorry
also,
to interrupt, but the thing is, like Mr. Hawking, Mr. Hallwell said, their companies work with schools directly.
yeah,
Here, we don't have Abbott that much. There are
Janine,
few companies who do that.
we didn't, and we
We
cannot
are going
be,
to have.
we cannot run without it. So if
Yeah.
we didn't, we have to. And also it's the job of
Yes.
Carlos and the job of iShip. And I would very much like that. I propose that our guests also give you the answer, but it's also to tell that I took already very two good insights for our job here from you and from our guests. One is we have to think about people wanting to get to the normal they know, and that those is an innovative space for research and for action. From what Ian has said specifically, we have a space to do innovative courses, advanced courses, to do innovative research on acting is don't go back to the normal because you are in a safety zone. We have
Right.
a space to do things here. And also from Jay's and from Ian, my other insight was it's something to use in the research, is that in terms of cultural organization, I took it from you guys to say we need to change from material to immaterial. How to create a culture, because I give you the example. It was until now very trendy that the companies developed Google-like spaces. Everybody wanted an office like Google because that's attractive to employees. Employees want to work in a space like Google, like Apple, and now we have to come it from physical spaces that creates engagement with the employees to intangibility, because there's no spaces in telework, but we still need, as you guys told us, to engage and create cultural drivers with the employees and the company, compromises, engagement. And so if it is not about the space, it's about immaterial. And immaterial, it's a challenge for our research and for
Yes.
us to understand how can we develop engaging for creative culture, engaging interaction and engagement with employees and companies that makes people want to work in this company in immaterial formats. That was my two outcomes until now from.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good, Janine.
Yeah. Thank you.
About this, I want to say that all training of the world is not enough to change thousands of executives of Portugal companies. It's a problem of ethics. They have formation universities, master, some have PhDs, they have experience. They have no ethic, and the intelligence is scarce in some area. Because what benefits do I have if I experience a work of war, persecution, injustice, and so on that we see in many Portuguese companies, also in universities and so on. It's unbelievable. I have to have my people motivated, concentration in the same purpose, in a good ambience, like what I see in Denmark. I go to Denmark many times. I see people in a good ambience at work. They like to go work. In Portugal, we have a structural problem, and I think the ethic problem. It's a problem of education and ethic, more than an academic or training problem. How to change this? I think it's very difficult. It's one of the more difficult problem that Portugal has to solve. Is the problem of the culture of the executives. They suppose they are leaders. They are not leaders of anything. The way they will be changed. They are not in the right place. They are destroying organizations completely. Their place was out of the organizations, and they are destroying thousands and thousands of companies in Portugal. I know many companies in Portugal from the north to the south. I heard that every week, every month. The ambience in many works are a small war. It's unbelievable. And simply, how can
I
we
think it's
allow?
very deep in our culture too, not only on the leaders, also on the employees, because when you do your work and you, let's imagine it's 9 to 6 and you go out at 6 and your colleague is staying there for another half an hour or another hour, and he goes at you like, whoa, why are you getting out at 6? It's not well seen.
Yeah.
A big
Because
problem.
in Portugal, we have that idea that it's very structural, very about hierarchies. We have to obey, and we have to do it for as many hours as possible. And it's not good, it's not productive, and it's not the right way to do things.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily, oh, I'm sorry, Carlos, go ahead.
No, well, I say after Americo said and Janine is a great point. We have to face this challenge, and in Algarve, we have to move on to avoid this kind of going back to the old pattern. You know, after pandemic pass away, perhaps many people are trying to go to the old pattern, but we have this responsibility to face and to create this challenge to teach in the organizations and in the school a new way of behave, which will be very important to think that the intangible capital is now a power, you know, and we have to realize that it's not just a material capital, but the immaterial, the intangible capital, which is the mind, which are the soft skills, you know, the capacity to create, the capacity to think together. All of these issues should be a great bridge that we should build, you know. This is the idea. For that reason, Jay and Ian, I think that Americo and I and Ricardo, we have the same idea.
Yeah.
We have to work together, guys.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about building that bridge. You know, to our esteemed colleague, and by the way, congratulations on working on your master's in occupational health. We wish you well with there you are. Hi, we wish you well with that.
Thank you.
You raised some good points, you know, regarding Portugal. Even prior to the pandemic, when we go out on corporate training assignments and identify training needs with companies from upper management, it's usually the philosophy that it's middle level management and the workers that need training in order to improve organizational performance. So then you go and you identify your metrics and you create some learning experiences and you work with the mid-level and the employees and so forth. And what you often hear is, well, when we try something new, we get pushback from upper level management who says, well, just do it the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Even in the new era of leadership flip and bottom up, there's still that strong top-down influence. And I'm not sure, and you might disagree, but I'm not sure that's ever going to go away. I think that an institute that like ISMAT, that has the power of research and the resources and the minds that you have available, if I may be so bold, fold that research into an executive development program and offer it not so much as a degree, but offer it as a continuing education for senior level management. In order to do that, we have to find a way to introduce a program like that because, first of all, they don't necessarily think they're going to need it. And so there's got to be something else that attracts them into the program so that you can then very craftily or creatively then start working on that change of mindset, that change in culture, regardless of the pandemic. If it doesn't change at the top, it's not going to change in the organization.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, you know, you have a program that very creatively helps to change the mindset and the focus of those that are in leadership or key stakeholder positions, and you attract them to the program with a carrot, so to speak, you know, whatever that might be.
Mhm.
Then there's an opportunity to work there and then bring it down through the organization. Secondly, you mentioned something about in employers in the Algarve. I've spent enough time in the Algarve with Carlos, been to his home, and you know, oh my gosh, it's been wonderful. But I've met a lot of employers, a lot of hotel owners, et cetera, across the Algarve, and have stayed at several of their finest establishments. I think it's crucial to obviously build employer partnerships. And of course, the question is, well, how do you do that? I think that employers at the end of the day, and this is going to be very literal, are going to ask this question. Regardless of how philanthropic they are and how supportive they are of a university, an employer at the end of the day is going to ask, what's in it for me? I mean, to me, that's the bottom line. And so in building employer partnerships, if an institute creatively is able to entice employers to be part of that university experience, then you have grounds to create a partnership over time, which could lead to graduate placement, to additional programs, et cetera. So how do you do that? Well, there are many ways. You know, you have a short list of employers. Do the employers that work with with your university, your institute, do they receive a copy of the institute's newsletter that goes to its students? Do you give your employers an opportunity to network with each other? There's a host of ideas, and I'm rambling, so I won't go on much further. But creating employer partnerships is crucial, as well as training the upper level management. And yet, those two things just don't happen because we know that it's the right thing to do. They have to be creatively enticed into those situations. So we have to rethink the angle that we approach that.
Thank you. Well, we are at the end of our webinar. Last words to my colleague, Carlos Cano. You have the last words.
I think we all have the first and last words, but I to say thank you to all my friends, Jay, Ian, Americo for the outstanding presentation, Ricardo for the outstanding way to move all this panel, and of course to all the people that were to present. Were marvelous to have people interested in think and in create new ways of behave toward the future. I want to tell Jay and Jan. Jan is not here. He had to left, but I have the phone call too from my friend Chris. He couldn't. He had a problem, but the main thing is that we count on them for the future and to work with Americo and you, Ricardo. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.